a beautiful Mediterranean port, and that can only mean one thing: Monte Carlo. And here we are for round 4 of the 1986 Formula One World Championship, the famous Monaco Grand Prix, probably the most glamorous motor race in the world, with a tight 2.1-mile circuit which twists round the little principality, overlooked by the multi-storey blocks of flats and the beautiful people and the boats in the harbour. Only the fastest 20 qualifiers are allowed to start on this tight circuit. We've had 2 fascinating days of qualifying, very hard fought indeed, and the surprise is that Ayrton Senna is not on pole position. It's a red and white car behind all those people there, and the driver, the reigning world champion, Alain Prost. He wasn't quite as quick as Ayrton Senna went on Saturday morning, but that time didn't count, and Prost's time on Saturday afternoon was what was necessary to take the pole for this race where it really matters. Nigel Mansell, he likes Monaco, he's gone well here before, he's led this race, although he's never won it, and he's second quickest in qualifying. The Honda-powered Williams had lots of problems. In Thursday's first qualifying session, 4 blown engines, but it all went okay on Saturday. So Ayrton Senna demoted to the second row of the grid, 3rd fastest with Lotus number 12. He was fastest of all on Saturday morning, but he suffered from traffic problems, and that's always the way in Monte Carlo when you're trying to do a quick lap. He just couldn't get a clear run, so he's back on the second row. 4th quickest, Monte Carlo resident Michele Alboreto. Like so many of the top drivers, he actually lives here in Monaco. 4th quickest on this slightly modified circuit this year. There's a new chicane on the waterfront which makes the circuit a little bit slower. But that's Ferrari's best qualifying position this year. And a man of whom we seem to hear more and more every race, the brilliant young Austrian Gerhard Berger. He's scored championship points in every race so far this year. He's 5th on the grid with the Benetton. And 6th, completing the 3rd row, we've got Riccardo Patrese with the flat iron Brabham. So here's a car which looked disastrously uncompetitive at the beginning of the season, but now seems to be going quicker and quicker. And at one stage in qualifying, Patrese was fastest of all. Patrese's teammate De Angelis, by contrast, had all sorts of problems and has only just scraped in 20th fastest. So 78 laps in prospect on this very tight, very punishing circuit. There's the Sainte-Devote chicane, which starts off the lap as the cars, the 20 lucky qualifiers, go round on their final warm-up lap. 7th qualifier is Jacques Lafitte, but they've just found a water leak on his car. They're strapping him into the spare car and he's going to start from the back. 8th qualifier is Patrick Tombe, using Ford power in his Lola for the first time. Keke Rosberg down in 9th position with Martin Brundle 10th in the new Tyrrell. Then Nelson Piquet in the second Williams, so he's well down, with René Arnoux 12th. Then it's Streff in the Tyrrell, Boutsen in the Arrows, Johansson's Ferrari and Fabi's Benetton, Sura's Arrows, Alan Jones in his Lola, Jonathan Palmer's Zack Speed, and De Angelis in the slower of the 2 Brabhams. Non-qualifiers, Ginzani, Dumfries, Rottengata, Dana, De Cesaris and Nannini, all out, having failed to get into the top 20. And the 20 cars on the grid now, with Prost on pole, Mansell alongside him, Senna and Alboreto behind, 78 tight laps. There's Prost, looking for the light. There are the lights, a red and a green. There's going to be a tremendous traffic jam as we come into Sainte-Devote, but Mansell gets too much wheel spin. Senna is going through. It's Prost who leads. Senna is second. Are they all going to get through? Mansell 3rd, Alboreto 4th, Berger is up into 5th place, then 2 abreast, squeezing through that gap miraculously. Everybody seems to be through, and it's Prost leading up the hill past Rosie's Bar into the Casino Square, with Ayrton Senna having made a very good start, straight up into 2nd place. 3rd is Mansell, 4th is Alboreto, and now over the bump, down to the Mirabeau, very tight hairpin, tight right-hander, down to the 1st gear left-hander, even tighter by the Lowe's Hotel, and then steeply on downhill, a great queue of cars with Brundle, I think they're sneaking inside Patrick Tombe. There's Alan Jones in the other Lola pretty near the back. They're down to the waterfront already at Portière, another very bumpy corner, 2nd gear this time. And then from Portière, they'll go through the tunnel, out of the tunnel again. Here's the new chicane. very, very much tighter than before. Senna still third, Mansell fourth, Alboreto fourth, I should say. It's Mansell, of course, in third place, but Mansell started second and won't be at all pleased at having lost a place to Senna right as the race began. Round the swimming pool they go, all tightening up as they break for this second gear corner, and then down to Ras Kass, which is a very tight right-handed hairpin. That already is the 2 miles completed as the leader, Alain Prost, comes up to the start-finish line to complete his first of 78 laps. There he goes. Senna is second, but dropping back already. Prost going very, very hard in these early stages. The car's twitching under braking with Rosberg, who's come storming up. Rosberg, I make in the top 6 already. Remember, he started 9th. And this is a circuit where overtaking is so very, very difficult. So Rosberg looking very strong already. The rest of the field storming on up the hill, except for Teo Fabi. We got a glimpse there of Fabi coming into the pits with his Benetton. So his race has run into trouble after only a lap. Senna second, Mansell third, Alboreto fourth. There's Rosberg in 5th place. Berger is 6th, 7th is Patrese. So Rosberg up to 5th now. Ayrton Senna second, but not making any impression on the flying Alain Prost, who started from pole position. He was fastest in the morning warm-up, and he's doing his best to make an early break. Here's this very tight chicane for the second time. Prost, Senna. Mansell is third. 4th is Alboreto. 5th, stuck behind Alboreto, is Keke Rosberg. McLaren's 1st and 5th. And McLaren, the only team to have 2 cars in the top 6. This is the swimming pool. Mansell closing back up to Senna a little bit. Out of the swimming pool complex, along the waterfront, down into Ras Kass once more. 2 laps already completed. That's Michele Alboreto in the humpbacked red Ferrari in 4th place. Senna, Mansell 3rd, Alboreto 4th. And once again, they're streaming away up the hill, and once again, Prost's lead seems to be getting bigger and bigger. Alain Prost, the world champion #1, hauling his way away from the rest of the field. There's Tombe, 9th behind Brundle, 10th is Piquet, 11th Boutsen, the rest of them storming up. That's Philippe Streff, #4, with Alan Jones on his tail. There is Jacques Lafitte, who started from the back, and there is Alain Prost on his way down to Mirabeau once more. And as Senna goes into Mirabeau already, he's got Mansell closing right up into his mirrors. That's the Lowe's corner. And a battle, therefore, for second place, a battle for 4th place. There's Patrick Tombe, who seems to have slipped back a little bit from Martin Brundle. But a battle for second between Senna and Mansell now, and a battle for 4th between Alboreto and the flying Keke Rosberg, who's done more overtaking so far in this race than anybody else. Prost at Tabac, Senna and Mansell through Tabac and on towards the swimming pool. Sliding round those swimming pool corners. Already there's a big black line of rubber around that swimming pool area. You can see the ideal line coated in rubber on the road from 2 days of qualifying, this morning's warm-up, and of course the supporting races, the Formula 3 race yesterday. And we've got Alan Jones off and Streff off. Alan Jones and Streff have gone off at Tabac. Alan Jones wants a push. He's backwards in the barrier. The marshals are, not surprisingly, going to his aid only after the rest of the field have gone through. Streff seems to have got underway. Alan Jones pointing in the wrong direction, getting a push. Alan Jones with the Ford-powered Lola, and Streff seem to have tangled going into Tabac, and the Jones Lola, I don't think is going to restart, although Philippe Streff has got away again. Lap 4 at Lowe's, the McLaren on its own. Senna and Mansell, Alboreto and Rosberg, Berger and Patrese. And there's Martin Brundle, who's doing an excellent job in the new Tyrrell. But through the tunnel, still the battle for second. And Alain Prost down to the chicane, almost completely on his own at this early stage, through that tight chicane. There's Senna, clips the apex, so does Mansell. Accelerating hard away from the chicane as already Prost is into Tabac. They've already got Alan Jones's car out of the way. We have confirmation that Philippe Streff is indeed back in the race with Tyrrell #4, but Alan Jones is out. Patrick Tombe, of course, driving the other Ford-powered Lola, is well up. He's the next man up behind Brundle. This is Senna in second place, Mansell third at Rascasse. All these low-speed hairpins, as you can see, Monte Carlo is a circuit that's very hard on brakes, it's very hard on transmissions, a lot of first, second and third gear work, and it's very, very hard work indeed for the drivers. Senna at Sainte-Devote, Mansell on his tail, up the hill as Prost already goes away. In the background you see the Ferrari of Alboreto, there he is, still holding off Rosberg. And twitching over the bumps into the Casino Square goes Nigel Mansell, with Ayrton Senna just tantalisingly ahead out of touch. The undulating run down to Mirabeau. The Ferrari there, a glimpse of the Ferrari. We'll wait to see it come round the Mirabeau, because that's the battle for fourth place, with Keke Rosberg very, very close indeed on his tail. Meanwhile, Berger has his mirrors full of Riccardo Patrese, who's doing an excellent job in the supposedly difficult to drive low-line Brabham. Out into the sunshine once more comes Alain Prost through the tight new chicane, and again Senna with a little bit more air between himself and Mansell. Mansell has dropped back. Mansell has lost contact there with Senna. He's still third, but he's slipped back to be equidistant between Senna and Alboreto, who's in fourth place. Berger, meanwhile, still holding off Riccardo Patrese in Brabham number 7. Battles all the way down the field, but as ever, Monte Carlo proving to be a circuit which bunches cars up, because overtaking is so very difficult on this tight track. Alain Prost doesn't have to worry about overtaking anybody, because he's at the front of the race. He's twitching through Sainte-Devote. There is Senna, and Mansell has indeed dropped back. Mansell dropping back into the clutches of Michele Alboreto, who still has the pressure from Keke Rosberg. Here's Berger and Patrese. And there is Mansell struggling to stay ahead of Ferrari number 27, which is, of course, Michele Alboreto. Over the bump, over that swooping bump, down from the Casino Square into Mirabeau. This is Senna at lows, corners everywhere you look. And Mansell, whatever allowed him to drop back from Senna, seems to have made up a little bit of the ground there. Perhaps Mansell just missed a gear somewhere. But Monte Carlo, a circuit where you can't afford to make even the slightest mistake, because a missed gear or a corner taken slightly offline on any other circuit could just mean a lost half second or so, but here it can mean a wheel against those unyielding barriers on this circuit where there are no run-off areas at all, and totally accurate driving is required. Mansell, Alboreto, Rosberg, closing up for that second gear right-hander at the swimming pool, opening out a little bit before they go back to Rascasse. You can see Rosberg's hands swinging over the top of the steering wheel as he goes onto full right lock for Rascasse. Out of the final corner, which has been eased a little bit, that bumpy corner, the right-hander onto the start-finish straight, up to Sainte-Devote once more, which the cars try to straighten out on the entry. Up to 150 or 155 miles an hour up this hill. In fact, a marshal getting his hat blown off there by Michele Alboreto, blasting past him. The marshals who have to stand very bravely, very close to the passing cars to do their job of work with the flags. There's Fabi in the other Benetton. He's out of the pits again. He's come out just behind Prost and just ahead of Ayrton Senna, and I wonder if that's going to provide a problem. Meanwhile, Fabi's teammate, Berger, under real pressure from Patrese, and Patrese squeezes through as they go through the Lowe's hairpin. Can Berger get him back? They're side by side as they go down the hill, but Patrese is indeed through in the Brabham BMW. Benetton BMW is vanquished by Brabham BMW, so still Mansell in third place. There is Fabi going through ahead of Senna, but it's Senna second, Mansell third, Alboreto still fourth, still fifth is Keke Rosberg, and the new sixth man is Riccardo Patrese, who's ahead of Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, who's now seventh. Martin Brundle still eighth, Patrick Tombe still ninth, and there's Mansell taking a very, very tight line through the Rascasse complex and away past the pits. Mansell not close enough again to Senna, nothing like as close as he was on about the second or third lap of the race, but nevertheless I know that Mansell is anxious today to play a waiting game. Senna has lapped Farby. Mansell still has it to do. Mansell on Farby's tail now as they go into the Casino Square. What's he going to do about it? Can he get alongside him as he goes down the hill towards the Mirabeau? In fact, Farby keeps well out of the way. A very good manoeuvre there by Farby, which means that Mansell hasn't been delayed at all, and Mansell, in fact, probably benefited just a little bit. And look at Alboreto with Rosberg right on his tail. Now, this is the next pair that are going to come up to Farby, and Rosberg pushing Michele Alboreto's Ferrari very, very hard indeed. Still Mansell third. Still Alain Prost in the lead. There he goes. Alain Prost looking smooth and comfortable and confident, as we would expect from the professor, the world champion who takes such a beautifully controlled and academic approach to his motor racing. We do think, incidentally, that all the Goodyear runners are going to need stops for tyres. So everybody running very close, overtaking very difficult, pit stops could play a major role in the pattern of this race. There's Rosberg still on Alboreto's tail. Doesn't seem to be able to do anything about it, and Alboreto's still able to fend off the TAG turbo-powered McLaren. Pit signals going out to both of them from the Ferrari pit, from the McLaren pit. They go up now to sound a vote, and Rosberg closes, but not close enough to take a lunge up the inside. There's Mansell in third place. Alboreto and Rosberg go through over the bump, twitching under the understeer for the Ferrari coming into the Casino Square, over the bump at the exit. That's where the cars can twitch wickedly to the outside of the road if they're not perfectly balanced. And if a car has a handling problem, if a car has a braking problem, if a car has a transmission problem, this circuit will find it. Portier into the tunnel, out of the bright lights into the darkness. And here you're going to see the gap, 7.35 seconds is Prost's lead after 12 laps. Mansell is 1.5 seconds behind Senna, and then Alboreto and Rosberg very close, and another 10 seconds behind Rosberg we get the new sixth man, Riccardo Patrese, in the Brabham. Tabac, swimming pool. Those ever-present apexes, the Armco beckoning, Alboreto keeping a tidy line, and Rosberg dropping back a little bit now. Rosberg's had his go, it didn't come off. He doesn't want to wear his tyres too quickly, so perhaps he's going to just wait a little bit before he has another go at trying a lunge. And that was Streff. Streff in trouble again. That's Streff's second problem of the race. Streff has spun at Sainte-Devote. He's got going again, but he's right in front of Ayrton Senna, and Senna forces his way past a very tricky manoeuvre. Actually, as they go up the hill, Mansell hasn't been so lucky. Alboreto and Rosberg, meanwhile, into Casino Square. But Streff was passed there by Mansell rather later than Senna, so Senna perhaps came off worse lapping Farby, but certainly came off better lapping Streff. Alboreto and Rosberg now have the Frenchman to pass after Streff's second spin of this race over those twitching bumps down into Portier. Now look at this. This is the man from Stoke Poges, Jacques Lafitte, trying to force his way past Stefan Johansson. You can't possibly pass coming down into Rascasse. There can't be room for two cars. They've gone all the way around Rascasse. How they didn't collide, I'll never know, but Jacques Lafitte has snatched a place. Meanwhile, leader Alain Prost laps Jonathan Palmer, who's at the tail of the field in the Zach speed. There is Ayrton Senna. He's not very far behind. Remember, with pit stops to come, Senna is by no means out of the running. Alain Prost in front, Ayrton Senna second. There's Nigel Mansell still third. There's Alboreto still fourth. Rosberg still fifth. And we've still got Riccardo Patrese in sixth place. On to the top start finish straight, and how very close they go to the Armco coming out of that final corner onto the start finish straight up to Sainte-Devote. Plenty of rubber in that braking area there, because that is one of the favourite overtaking places, but Alboreto still able to fend off Keke Rosberg. Doesn't seem to be anything that the McLaren driver can do about this, and perhaps he's worried that if he really has a go at Alboreto, he'll punish his tyres and still may get nothing for his pains. Down to Mirabeau, downhill to Lowe's, on downhill to the Portier. and there's barely a length between them as they go through that slow section. Over the bumps, on the brakes, off the brakes, second gear, up third, fourth, fifth and sixth gear in the tunnel. 170 miles an hour. They come out of the tunnel, then hard on the brakes and all the way down the gearbox once more to bottom. And it's quite usual for a driver to finish this race with his gear change hand blistered from the endless gear changes, something like 2,400 gear changes for a driver who goes the full distance and goes all the way up and down the box at every corner. Admittedly, some of them don't do that. Some of them skip gears under braking. They may go straight from third to first here for Rascasse, which is a bottom gear corner on the power, stay in bottom, then kick the power on as they skim that Armco, and now surely Rosberg's going to have a go. Rosberg is having a go. They're side by side as they go up to Sainte Devote, and is he through? He's through! Keke Rosberg goes through at last into fourth place. It took him a long time, but he waited and then he pounced. Keke Rosberg is past Michele Alboreto. That shows that you can have overtaking at Monte Carlo. We see it again. He lines up on the outside as they go down to Sainte Devote. He leaves his braking oh so late, and Alboreto has him on the inside. Alboreto has to let him go. The two of them twitching under the late braking, and he's through and past. And at once he pulls away. At once the McLaren moves away from the Ferrari. So Keke Rosberg is now fourth, Alain Prost is first, McLaren's first and fourth, Lotus Renault is in second place. There's the third place man, Nigel Mansell, getting a little bit stuck behind Jonathan Palmer at the chicane, but he's passed him before to back. And there is Rosberg, and Rosberg, I think, is going to start catching Nigel Mansell pretty quickly. Now he's passed Alboreto. Rosberg really with a charge on. Rosberg now has to pass Jonathan Palmer. Down to Rascasse they go, little spurts of flame from the exhaust pipe of the McLaren as he accelerates away again up to the gasometer hairpin onto the start-finish straight. There's Mansell, and Palmer is easily passed on the start-finish straight as Rosberg goes down once more to Sainte Devote, on up the hill. Meanwhile, another car is lapped. That is Elio De Angelis being lapped by the leader. Elio De Angelis and Brabham number 8, both the Brabhams still in the race. And of course, Riccardo Patrese, a past winner of the Monaco Grand Prix, is running in the top 6. Patrese won this race last time he was driving for Brabham. And 1.9 seconds, less than 2 seconds between Senna and Mansell. Senna, you can hear that distinctive driving style where he blips the throttle. He's on and off and on and off the throttle in a lot of these slow corners, keeping the throttle revs up. And it certainly seems to have an effect. Very fast man indeed, but 3.4 seconds the difference between Mansell and Rosberg. And it'll be fascinating to see whether that gap starts to come down. There is Rosberg. And I think visually you can see that the gap is getting smaller and that Keke Rosberg is indeed catching Nigel Mansell, and Mansell seems to be closing on Senna again. So we could have a 3-car battle for second place before very long. Michele Alboreto's Ferrari has been well dropped. Alboreto simply not able to stay with Rosberg, but Rosberg can see in front of him as he comes up to the start-finish straight once more. Just going out of his sight up to Sainte Devote is Nigel Mansell, tantalisingly out of touch. But Rosberg working to reduce that gap. He can see him going up the hill, past Rosie's Bar, taking a nice straight line through those curves, over the brow, through the Casino Square, past the Hotel de Paris on his left. Meanwhile, Prost is already going down to Portière as we see Senna coming out of Mirabeau and down to Lowe's. There's Mansell. And there is De Angelis, who is lapped. De Angelis keeping out of the way there of Keke Rosberg, who's lapped him quite safely at Lowe's. Mansell goes into the tunnel. There's Mansell in the tunnel, and there's Rosberg, and goodness me, he's closing. The fastest part of the circuit, out into the sunshine again, hard on the brakes, all the way down the gearbox for the chicane. Senna at Tabac. Mansell into Tabac, Rosberg into Tabac, and behind De Angelis. There, the red glimpse of the Alboreto Ferrari in 5th place, and Alboreto in fact also slipping back a little bit towards the Brabham of Patrese in 6th place. I think that Patrese is even closing a little bit on the Ferrari, but the other Brabham is lapped by the Ferrari number 27 of Alboreto. That's De Angelis being lapped. And no sign, as Alboreto gets his pit signals, no sign of the car that he's got in front of him, because that's Rosberg, and Rosberg is closing right up onto Nigel Mansell. Casino Square. Down the hill past the tip-top bar, hard on the brakes, 2nd gear for the Mirabeau hairpin, 1st gear for the Lowe's. 2nd gear for Portier over those bumps. Senna going very close to the Armco. And Elio De Angelis in the pits. They're changing the tyres on Brabham number 8. In fact, he's being plugged into by John Gentry, who's talking to him over the intercom. Gordon Murray standing behind. It looks like a bit more than a tyre change. I think they've got a problem with that car, but De Angelis in Brabham number 8 in the pits there. And meanwhile, we've got a tremendous battle going on in midfield, because René Arnoux is ahead of Martin Brundle now. There's Tombe in the red Lola, Piquet behind him. And they're coming up to lap Jonathan Palmer and Philip Streff, who are having their own little battle at the back of the field. But René Arnoux has come absolutely storming through. He's now in 8th place, Brundle demoted to 9th, Tombe 10th, Piquet 11th, and Jacques Lafitte's on the back of that little queue in 12th place. All of them running very, very close indeed, but René Arnoux has somehow elbowed his way to the front of that group, and he's now got to elbow his way past Philip Streff and Jonathan Palmer. Somebody clipping very close to a barrier there, and you can see little shreds of rubber on the road being thrown up. Shreds of rubber reminds me that we should be having some tyre stops before very long. This is a 78-lap race, so half distance is about 39 laps. And there's that wonderful train with Streff has got Brundle, his own teammate, right behind him, ready to lap him. And into the pits we've got Teo Fabi. Teo Fabi comes back into the pits with the Benetton, and this terrific train of cars. Arnoux with behind him Jonathan Palmer getting the blue flag there. Behind Palmer and Streff is Brundle, then Tombe, then Piquet. In fact, Brundle has got by Streff, and Streff is now holding up Tombe a little bit. Brundle now has Palmer to lap. Palmer moves across and Brundle goes through. Streff is passed by Tombe, but Piquet doesn't get through, nor does Jacques Lafitte. So lots of excitement all the way through this superb gaggle of cars going down through Portier. Brundle, Palmer a lap down, Tombe, Streff a lap down, Piquet and Jacques Lafitte at the back. Through the tunnel they go. Nelson Piquet not having a terribly happy race. Surprising to see the Williams Honda quite so far back. Tombe is now stuck behind Jonathan Palmer, although I'm sure he'll get past him on the run down to Tabac. No, he doesn't. He's still tucked in behind the Zach Speed. And while all this excitement has been going on, we've got a new third place man, because Nigel Mansell's dropped back. There is Ayrton Senna in 2nd place, and there in 3rd place now is Keke Rosberg with McLaren number 2. And you saw a glimpse of the Williams Honda coming down into Lowe's just then, but Mansell has lost that 3rd place and indeed has slipped back quite a way in this last lap or so. On to the waterfront. There is Rosberg. Now, is Rosberg closing up on Senna? Yes, goodness me, he is. At the end of 27 laps, there was 2.5 seconds or so between Senna and Rosberg. Mansell already 5 seconds down, and a long way back. Alboreto in 5th place, Patrese in 6th place, but Senna has one of the arrows to lap there. It's Boutsen, I think. It is indeed Boutsen getting the blue flag as they come into Rascasse. Senna right on his tail, but Boutsen hasn't let him through yet, and this has allowed Keke Rosberg to get very close up to Senna. We've got a McLaren first and a McLaren third. Ayrton Senna is the Lotus filling in the McLaren sandwich, and now surely at Sainte-Devote he gets by. No, he doesn't. And into the pits comes Mansell. That's no surprise at all, because Mansell had slowed down a lot. I think he's really ready for his fresh tyres. Nigel Mansell from 4th place into the pits. It's okay at the back. Is it okay yet at the front? They haven't quite finished at the front. No, it's off the jacks now, and away he goes. Not a perfect stop, but a quick one. Rosberg, meanwhile, laps Boutsen down to Mirabeau, so Senna still second. Rosberg in a rapidly closing third place. Boutsen, of course, has been lapped. Mansell is back out of the pits once more, and he will have lost his fourth place to Michele Alboreto. But Mansell has only lost, I think, that one place. So Mansell is fifth and has made his pit stop. And the four cars in front of him, we suspect, will definitely stop for tyres. They're all on Goodyears, and we understand the Goodyear tyre users are expecting to stop. Oh, and a bit of a twitch there from Rosberg, who's sliding that McLaren number 2 from side to side across the road in his efforts to close up on Ayrton Senna, which seem to be being successful. 11.5 seconds is the gap from Prost to Senna, but the gap from Senna to number 2 Rosberg is coming down all the time. Up to Sainte-Devote, and that's where Rosberg made his wonderful overtaking lunge at Alboreto some laps ago, but he's nothing like close enough. Well, there is the gap, 1.378 seconds between Senna and Rosberg, so not close enough yet to make an overtaking manoeuvre, but Rosberg definitely catching Ayrton Senna as they go over the bump. Again, a little twitch from Rosberg, hard on the brakes, second gear Mirabeau, then down to bottom gear for Lowe's, and he's very close again. There's about, inches between the back of the Lotus and the nose section of the McLaren as they come down to Portiere. Another very bumpy approach, on the brakes, on the power, up through the gearbox, into the darkness of the tunnel. Rosberg is tucked into the slipstream now. They go up to 175 miles an hour. They burst back into the sunlight, hard on the brakes once more, all the way from 6th gear, for those using 6-speed gearboxes, down to bottom for that tight new chicane, up through the gearbox once more, down to Tabac, then towards the swimming pool complex. You can never relax for a moment. Senna being quite unruffled, in fact, by the ever-present attention of Keke Rosberg, because Rosberg doesn't seem to be able to worry Senna into making a mistake. His style is still absolutely as smooth and as flowing as ever before. But goodness me, in these slow corners, the McLaren gets very close indeed. Now he could be close enough to be tucked in the slipstream as they come up to Sainte-Devote. Is he going to make an effort? No, not this time. You see the little flash of flames from the exhaust pipes of the McLaren as he comes down the gearbox, braking for Sainte-Devote, then up the hill once more, over the brow, into the Casino Square. And still Senna fending off Keke Rosberg, a superb cat and dog battle that we always seem to get here at Monaco, where overtaking is so difficult, and a driver who wants to pass the car in front has to bide his time and wait to snatch his moment. Portiere, 14.5 now, the gap between leader Prost and second man Senna, but the gap we're seeing is between second man Senna and third man Rosberg, and Rosberg's dropped back a little bit. Rosberg has let Senna go just a length or two. Perhaps he too has decided that he's got a tyre change soon to come. He could ruin his tyres in his efforts to get past Senna, but what he really needs to do is to have a perfect pit stop, and if it can be quicker than Senna's, then the overtaking could in effect happen as a result of the pit stops rather than on the track. Down once more to Rascasse. Out of Rascasse, under acceleration. Oh, and Rosberg's coming in. Rosberg to the pits. As we guessed, it is time for Rosberg's tyre change. Now, this is a very important one indeed. The watch is ticking away, the car up on its jacks, the wheels off, the new wheels going on. Rosberg tears off the tear-off visor layer that he's got, so he's got clean Perspex visor. The oily top visor torn off. It was 13.2 seconds, and he's away. There's Alain Prost, the leader. So Rosberg has made a good but not a perfect pit stop for tyres, and we'll work out where he will have come out. In fact, we think that Alboreto has gone past. So Alboreto now up to third place, but of course Alboreto has got to make a pit stop. Indeed, Alain Prost will have to make a pit stop for fresh tyres, as will the second place man, Ayrton Senna. Prost first, Ayrton Senna second. Keke Rosberg has made his stop and has dropped to fourth, but Alboreto in third place has to stop. And in fifth place, Nigel Mansell has also made his pit stop. Here is Alain Prost. Is he on his way to the pits? He doesn't want to leave it too late, as his worn tyres can start to slow his times. You can see a groove appearing on those tyres, but he's not coming in this time. And his pit signal says L2. That, I think, will mean come in 2 laps' time. L2, it said P1. That means you're in the lead, and Alain Prost knows that. It said 45, which means 45 laps to go, and it said L2, which I guess means that we can expect to see McLaren number 1 coming in for its fresh rubber in 2 laps' time. And there's McLaren number 2 on its fresh rubber, coming out of the swimming pool complex and going down towards Rascasse. Ahead now of Keke Rosberg, we have the Ferrari, which has its pit stop still to come. In fact, the Ferrari is just in front of it. You can see there is Michele Alboreto, and he still is on his original rubber. So I don't think it's going to take Keke Rosberg on fresh rubber very long to overhaul Michele Alboreto. Certainly less time than it took him to pass him in the early stages of the race. Up to Casino Square goes Rosberg on the tail of Michele Alboreto, through Casino Square, past the Hotel de Paris, down past the tip-top, hard on the brakes and into the Mirabeau. Out of Mirabeau, down to the Lowe's hairpin. And Alboreto once more not making it any easier than he can help for Keke Rosberg, and one can't blame him for that, because this is the battle for third place in the 1986 Monaco Grand Prix. But as they come into the tunnel, that's a very strange place for Rosberg to try. He surely isn't going to try and overtake the Ferrari in the tunnel. No, he's still behind it as they come down to the chicane. And Rosberg curbing there, cocking his right-hand front wheel up over the curb, but he's tucked right in behind Alboreto's Ferrari. Alboreto glancing at his mirrors there as he turns past the swimming pool. A twitch from Alboreto. And the McLaren closing right up on braking for the tightest bit of the swimming pool. Then down to Rascasse they go. Is this going to be the time for Alboreto to come in once more? No, he's going to stay out and stay in front of the McLaren, but surely now the McLaren will go through at the same place as they go up to Sainte-Devote. And Keke Rosberg does the same manoeuvre that he did on Alboreto, but this time he's able to do it earlier on the straight and is back onto the line under braking for Sainte-Devote. Alboreto demoted to fourth place. We're going to see it again, and you see he does it much earlier, does Rosberg. He's actually already ahead of the Ferrari before he has to brake for Sainte-Devote. So McLaren's first and third again, but remember, Alain Prost hasn't made his stop yet. Ayrton Senna in the Lotus in second place hasn't made his, and this is Keke Rosberg, therefore, in a very good place. If Alain Prost has any problems with his pit stop, and indeed if Ayrton Senna does, then Keke Rosberg could look very well placed. But it's Prost in now, and it looks as though all is going well. Alain Prost is in, the front is done, the back is done, it's a good stop, and Alain Prost is away. We didn't have the watch on that, we didn't see the beginning of the stop, but that looked like a perfect pit stop for Alain Prost. Not quite quick enough to allow him to retain the lead, because Ayrton Senna has gone through. This is a circuit where coming into the pits and getting out of the pits takes quite a bit of time, so even though that was a quick one for Prost, I have an estimate here of 9.5 seconds for Alain Prost's pit stop. One of the Brabhams being lapped there. And here we're back with Jonathan Palmer and Philip Streff still having their battle as Ayrton Senna comes through. Ayrton Senna has passed Stefan Johansson there. Johansson himself is a lap ahead of the cars in front of him. And there is Alain Prost just warming up his new tyres. Ayrton Senna, the new leader. Stefan Johansson, who's been lapped once by the leader. Philip Streff is about to be lapped for the second time by Ayrton Senna as they come out of the tunnel down to the waterfront. Philip Streff doesn't let Senna through, so Senna is stuck behind Philip Streff. Now Streff pulls over, Senna weaves his way past Streff, but just behind after we've seen Johansson and ahead of Tombe now is the second place man, Alain Prost. Prost has had his pit stop, Senna has his still to come. And surely it would take a miraculous pit stop to allow Senna to go in and come out again ahead of McLaren number 1. Alain Prost looking very secure indeed with his pit stop under his belt. In third place, it's Keke Rosberg. Patrick Tombe getting a nice ride behind the second place McLaren there. Up the hill, there's Prost, there's Tombe, and there is Prost into the Casino Square as Senna comes out of Mirabeau and down to Lowe's. Behind Senna we still have Palmer, Streff, Johansson. There is second man Prost, out of the Lowe's hairpin, on down to Portiere. So traffic between Prost and Senna. Unless Senna's going to make his pit stop soon, Prost could well get a little bit stuck behind the traffic ahead of him. Here's Senna at the chicane. We follow him all the way down to Tabac, past the yachts. 5.5 seconds is the gap between Senna and Prost. So Senna, with his pit stop still to come, must know that it's going to be an impossible task for him to stay ahead of Prost. Prost, meanwhile, well and truly stuck in that little gaggle of traffic. He's behind Stefan Johansson now, who gets the blue flag. Ahead of Johansson, it's Streff. Ahead of Streff, it's Jonathan Palmer, and 14.2 seconds between the second place McLaren and the third place McLaren. That's Prost and Rosberg. 14 plus is the pit signal that goes out there to Prost, which tells him the gap back to his own teammate, Keke Rosberg. And Prost still trying to work his way through this traffic. Prost stuck behind Streff. Senna is away from this little group now. And still no sign of Senna making his pit stop. Now as they come down the hill, surely Streff will pull over. Streff gets the flag. Prost goes through. Ahead of Prost now, it's Jonathan Palmer with the very smartly turned out Zaxby, which is spitting flame back at the McLaren behind it. Into the tunnel they go, 6.1 seconds. So you see Prost has definitely been delayed by his progress through this traffic. It's cost him over half a second in a lap, but he is now past Palmer. There is Prost in the chicane and out of the chicane ahead of the Zaxby now. And still we wait to see what's going to happen about Senna in this tyre stop, because Ayrton Senna has kept us guessing once again. There he is. And soon, surely, Lotus number 12 must come in for its fresh tyres. There's Alain Prost, just sitting about 6 seconds behind him. Out of Rascasse, on to his next lap. The pit signals tell him he's plus 12 and he's minus 6.6. He's 12 seconds ahead of Rosberg. He's 6.6 seconds behind Ayrton Senna. Up to Saint-Devote. There is Brundle, soon to be lapped. There is leader Ayrton Senna, being lapped now. Riccardo Patrese in his Brabham, which has dropped to the tail of the field. And we've got Ferrari number 27, Michele Alboreto, going very slowly around the swimming pool. Alboreto hasn't had his tyre stop yet, but I think there's something very much more serious amiss with the Ferrari, which was lying in a strong 4th place. That's very sad indeed. Obviously problems for Michele Alboreto, who will now lose 4th place to Nigel Mansell. Senna still leading, of course, but he has his pit stop to come. Alain Prost and Keke Rosberg 2nd and 3rd in their McLarens, but they have got their pit stops safely under their belts, as indeed has Nigel Mansell, who's now in 4th place. René Arnoux is 5th, Gerhard Berger is 6th, but Alain Prost is closing in that 2nd place. He's not going to wait for Ayrton Senna to make his pit stop before taking this lead, or he'd rather not, because he's coming through the swimming pool complex very, very quickly indeed, and he's right on Ayrton Senna's tail. Alain Prost closes right up on Senna. Senna still driving very hard, but is this pit stop coming? We can see his tyres are grooved. He's got them very near to the end of their useful life, but he hasn't come in again. Is Ayrton Senna trying to go the whole distance on one set of tyres? Surely not, although Senna has tried gambles of this sort before. Up to Saint Devote, Prost sitting on Senna's tail. The two of them accelerated a great blast of sound up the hill. Martin Brundle still ahead of them to be lapped over the brow into the Casino Square. And Alain Prost starting to line up an overtaking manoeuvre. I think he's starting to look at where the places would be, to look at Senna down to the Mirabeau. And they're very, very close at Mirabeau. They couldn't be closer as they come down to Lowe's. This is the battle for the lead. Ayrton Senna hasn't had his pit stop. He's on worn tyres, whereas Alain Prost is on lovely fresh ones. And they're out of Portière. They're going down into the tunnel now. And Prost has a little look at the inside, but you can't surely overtake in this long, long right-hand curve, which is the fastest part of the circuit. They're out of that now, down to the chicane, on the brakes. Senna clips a curve. That's Brundle going through in front of them. Now towards Tabac, into Tabac, towards the swimming pool, and Prost sitting hard on Ayrton Senna's tail. Is he going to line up for Saint Devote this time? Out of the swimming pool. 0.9 seconds was the gap at the end of 40 laps, but it's less than that now. And surely Senna must come in. He doesn't. Senna carries on, but Alain Prost is going to pounce surely as they go up to Saint Devote. Alain Prost looking for a way past. It's the traditional overtaking manoeuvre on the outside, but Senna isn't having it. Senna keeps the door shut, leaves his braking very, very late, and Alain Prost has to wait. Up the hill they go once more. Into Casino Square. We didn't see the Lotus pit signals. We don't know whether Ayrton Senna's going to come in next lap, but Prost isn't going to take any gambles on it. Prost wants to take this lead. Senna keeps the door very firmly shut by keeping to the right of the road as they go into Mirabeau. Out of Mirabeau to Lowe's. Round Lowe's, down towards Portière. And still Senna holding this lead by the narrowest of margins. Into Portière. On into the tunnel again. Flashing through under the lights, out into the sunshine, down to the chicane. Prost as close as he can possibly be without going over the top of Senna. Still, they're not getting very much closer to Brundle. Such is the pace that Senna has now been reduced to, because I think his tyres are getting very, very tired indeed, but he's hanging on to the lead. Waves from the crowd. There's a Alain Prost fan down there somewhere. But Senna still has the lead as they come down to Rascasse. Is this going to be the time that he stops? Yes, he's put his hand up. Senna puts his hand up, and he comes in, and Prost goes through to the lead. Alain Prost back in the lead. Now, how is this Lotus pit stop going? Alain Prost on up to Saint Devote, all on his own now. There is the Lotus pit stop. Front tyres on. Back tyres on. It's a good one, 9.7 seconds, we thought. And that's Riccardo Patrese in all sorts of trouble down by Tabac with number 7 Brabham, which has been at the tail of the field with an engine problem. It now looks as though it's on fire, but Patrese is safely out of the car. And meanwhile, we see the leader, number 1, Alain Prost, on his triumphant way. It's a McLaren 1-2 because we've got Keke Rosberg now installed in second place. Ayrton Senna rejoining in third place after that pit stop. McLaren 1, McLaren 2, Lotus 3, and Nigel Mansell is still there in fourth place. Out of the chicane and down to Tabac, we've still got yellow flags, of course, for Riccardo Patrese's Brabham, with the green flag saying it's all clear now. Once that Prost has passed that particular obstacle, Prost through the swimming pool area and on towards Rascasse, and we turn right back to see the other McLaren, number 2. There it is, and it's 19.4 seconds. That's the difference between leader Prost and second man Rosberg. Ayrton Senna third, Nigel Mansell fourth, René Arnoux fifth, and now in sixth place, the other Ligier of Jacques Lafitte. Remember, he started right at the back in the spare car, so it's been another splendid drive by Jacques Lafitte. 2 McLarens, 2 Ligiers, a Lotus and a Williams in the top 6. And here's the battle for 7th place. Brundle, Piquet, Tombe, with Nigel Mansell coming up to lap them. And Stefan Johansson following with a little grandstand view. There's Mansell. He's just lapped Johansson in the sole surviving Ferrari. It was turbocharger trouble, we're told, that put Alboreto out. But what about this battle for 7th? Because Brundle has that place by a very narrow margin from Nelson Piquet. Nelson Piquet making a little challenge as they go up to Sainte-Devote. Patrick Tambay following them. And out of Sainte-Devote, it's Piquet challenging Brundle. Piquet and Brundle side by side as they go up the hill, and Piquet's through. Piquet passes Brundle in a most unusual place, coming out of Sainte-Devote and on up the hill. Nigel Mansell still at the back of this little gaggle, and now it's Patrick Tambay who's right on Brundle's tail as they come storming down the hill, and Tambay's making an effort. Tambay's hits them. Oh, and Tambay's over. Tambay turns over. Tambay runs over the back of Brundle's car, cartwheels into the barriers, but he's out. He's all right. The car lands on its wheels, and Patrick Tambay appears to be all right. The car is well and truly in the road, but that was Tambay trying to pass Brundle going down the outside. There is Patrick Tambay, very relieved to be walking about in what could have been a very nasty accident. Watch it again. Brundle takes his line, Tambay hits him at the back, cartwheels over in front of him, goes completely over, clouts the barrier, bounces off the tyres, and fortunately lands right way up on its wheels, with Tambay still strapped into the cockpit as Nigel Mansell squeezes through the debris. So Prost on his way. That's Alain Prost, the leader at Rascasse, but we think that Martin Brundle's car is limping round. Tambay safely out of the car. We don't think Brundle was hurt, but his car is certainly progressing at a very slow speed round the back part of the circuit. And here goes Prost out of Sainte-Devote and on up the hill, and there indeed is Brundle's car. It looks as though it's got a puncture, and Jacques Lafitte goes past. Brundle slowly making his way back to the pits. So that accident put out both Brundle and Patrick Tambay, but we're happy to confirm that Patrick Tambay is quite all right. Yellow flags at Mirabeau as the marshals manhandle Patrick Tambay's badly damaged Carl Haas Lola Ford out of the way, and Brundle has indeed stopped, and you can see that that rear tyre is indeed punctured. Keke Rosberg coming down to Mirabeau ahead of Rosberg, and the next car for him to lap is the Ligier of René Arnoux. So 5th man Arnoux about to be lapped by 2nd man Rosberg, and what a wonderful domination this race has finally proved to be for McLaren 1 and 2. Alain Prost, the reigning world champion, the man who's won the Monaco Grand Prix for the last 2 years, going for the hat-trick as he comes through Rascasse and out towards the final corner that leads them onto the start-finish straight. 3 laps to go, says the pit signal. And Prost going on his smooth and triumphant way, all on his own now. He's got nothing to worry about except preserving the car, except hoping that no mechanical problem will stop him, and indeed hoping that his fuel consumption has been all right in this car. Monte Carlo, not nearly such a thirsty circuit as Imola, where we were 2 weeks ago, but nevertheless, in these days of adjustable boost, you have to make sure that your engine isn't using the fuel too quickly. Prost's digital readout on the dash of the McLaren will be telling him how much fuel he's got left, and certainly he seems to be driving at pretty much undiminished pace. He knows that Keke Rosberg behind him would like to be in front of him. No team orders between the McLaren team at this stage of the season, and so Alain Prost can't relax completely, because his own teammate Keke Rosberg is not that far behind. Philipp Streff is not that far in front of him. Philipp Streff, the next car for Alain Prost to lap as he goes for the 75th time past the swimming pool, having driven an absolutely immaculate race so far. Only lost the lead for 7 laps after his pit stop, and when Ayrton Senna came in, he was back in that lead. Ayrton Senna still going in third place with the Lotus. Nigel Mansell still going in fourth place with the Williams Honda, and all the rest of the field, Arnoux in fifth place, Lafitte in sixth place, and in seventh place Nelson Piquet, and all the rest have been lapped by the flying leading McLaren. Down the hill, past the tip-top, into the Mirabeau, the blue flag for Streff, but Alain Prost isn't in a hurry now. He doesn't want to rush it, but he goes past Streff as they go into the Lowe's hairpin. And on to Portiere goes Prost, all on his own now, into the tunnel. It looks quite bright in here until you come out into the bright sunshine, and then your eyes do take a moment to readjust. The chicane. First year that the circuit's had this very tight chicane, the old flick of the waterfront chicane having been deemed too dangerous. And despite that extremely unpleasant accident between Tombay and Brundle, this has been a rather less hectic Monaco Grand Prix in terms of accident damage than we've seen for some years, because most of the drivers have managed to avoid the barriers. We had Alan Jones in the barriers very early on. 1 lap left to go. The leader now on his final lap, as the pit signals tell him, up the hill, Saint-Devote, Rosie's Bar, past the Hermitage, and lots of rubber off the line. You can see the flakes of rubber each side of the line that the cars take after this long and grueling race. Over the brow, down for the final time, past the tip-top bar, on the brakes, second gear, into the Mirabeau hairpin, little squirt of power, hit the brakes again, bottom gear, turn the wheel to full left lock, on the power, into second gear, down to Portiere, stay in second, hit the brakes, across the bump, into the tunnel, and then all the way up through the gearbox to the fastest part of the circuit for the 78th and final time for Alain Prost, the man who won the Monaco Grand Prix in 1984. He won it, of course, in 1985, and he's on his way to winning it in 1986, the Monte Carlo Grand Prix hat-trick, and nobody's done that since Graham Hill in the 1960s. Alain Prost, past the swimming pool, the tight left-hander that ends the swimming pool section, the short squirt down to the left-hander that leads into Rascasse, that very, very tight bottom gear right-hander, up through the gearbox once more. The checkered flag's going to be waiting. The McLaren pit are delighted and cheering, and here comes Alain Prost to take the checkered flag and win the Monaco Grand Prix for the third time on the trot, his second Grand Prix running. Keke Rosberg gets the checkered flag from Jackie Higgs for finishing second. Ayrton Senna is third, with Nigel Mansell fourth, and the Ligiers of Arnoux and Lafitte finishing fifth and sixth.
Alain, that was a fantastic victory. With 3 wins in Monaco, you're becoming a bit of a specialist here, is that true?
Yes, it's true. I think it's more than this kind of record. It's very important today to win in this race, because it's 9 points to the championship, and it was not planned on one side, because I thought that Ayrton or even Nelson and Nigel were a little bit more competitive with their cars in Monaco, and as I won the race, it's a plus. And I'm very surprised today to win very easy this race, because my car was absolutely fantastic through this race and through the practice, and I'm very confident now about the championship, because I'm leading at the moment, and I think the next race will be even better for me.
Absolutely no problem then from flag to flag?
No problem. I did a good start. I changed the tires very quickly, and the only problem was I had to be careful about the rear tires, because we had a wear problem, and I had to be careful about the cars I had to overtake, and I wanted to keep my concentration very high, because it's a kind of track you must be very careful, and everything was okay, but it was very tiring physically.
Did you take a bit of a gamble with the tires?
No, not at all. I had 3 soft and 1 hard, and Keke start with 4 Cs, which is even softer than me. I wanted to be conservative, and I did not push very hard on the tires, because I was safe. I think in Monaco it's not important to do a big gap between the others, because it's so difficult to pass that if you lead the race, you have you're a little bit more quiet.
Well, congratulations. It was a great win, wasn't it?
Thank you. Yeah, it was a very good one. I think it's one of my best one, but you know, the last one is always the best.
So, with the World Championship now a quarter done, Alain Prost is back in the lead, 22 points, with Ayrton Senna 3 points behind, Nelson Piquet in third place, a further 4 points behind, Keke Rosberg fourth with 11, and Nigel Mansell down in fifth place with 9 points. That's the drivers' table, and in the constructors' table, we've got McLaren back at the top, 33 points, Williams Honda with 24, Lotus Renault with 19, and Benetton BMW with 8. A wonderful Monaco Grand Prix, but there's more excitement to come in 2 weeks' time when we move north to Belgium, the magnificent Spa circuit and the Belgian Grand Prix.